Business of Boo Radley and his house, by the way, is just brilliant stuff. Really brilliant stuff. Copied and emulated by writers everywhere.
When you think about the pacing and the order of the chapters and the way Boo Radley keeps coming back and coming back and coming back, and Ewell sneaking around, and everybody's always sneaking around. I mean, it's an incredibly dramatic book. It's wonderful.
I just found that the drama just kept building and building and building, and you're suspecting something about Boo, which should tell you something about yourself. Very, very emotional thing. The suspense was unusual and really powerful drama that really did hook you, which obviously I try to do with my books.
From the Radley chicken yard, tall pecan trees shook their fruit into the schoolyard, but the nuts lay untouched by the children. Radley pecans would kill you. A baseball hit into the Radley yard was a lost ball and no questions asked. The misery of that house began many years before Jim and I were born.
I sort of came over the years to a realization that I bet is true of Harper Lee. As well. You start with who and what you know. You sort of like take a survey of the lay of the land that formed you and shaped you, and then you begin to lie about it. You tell one lie that turns into a different lie, and after a while those models sort of lift off and become their own people rather than the people you originally thought of. And when you weave an entire network of lies, what you're really doing, if you're aiming to write literary fiction, I think what you're really doing is by telling lies, you're trying to arrive at a deeper truth.
To Kill a Mockingbird was published on July 11th, 1960.
Well, when it came out in 1960, I wasn't here. So when I started working here, then that's a question we get a lot. So I began asking people, what did you think, And most people said that they didn't pay it any mind. I asked my mother, and she said, well, it just seemed so familiar. We didn't see anything special about it.
I didn't know that many people in the white community. I didn't know their reaction to the book until much later. But I read the book as soon as it came out, and I got my hands on it. I was very much impressed. Not a lot of black people read the book.
I didn't need to read that. I knew what they were talking about. For somebody who didn't know, okay, I had no intellectual curiosity about that. I had been through that with my wife. I'd been through that with my father and my grandfather. It was too close to me. I remember Emmett Till and all of that drama around that. I mean, I was a part of the march around Jimmy Lee Jackson's death and the missing, the three civil rights workers, Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney. There was too much horror around me at the time for me to absorb more. What other writer during that time was willing to take on this subject with the kind of honesty and integrity that she did? What other white writer?
To write a book like this as a Southerner is such an act of protest.
We think of this book as sort of being a post-civil rights novel, but it actually was published before the biggest explosions of the civil rights movement and helped bring them on.
Ain't gonna let segregation loaded. Turn me round, turn me round, turn me round.
This was a very brave book to have written when Harper Lee wrote it. And she probably gets zero credit anymore for speaking a truth that people, You know, 1959, 1960, they were not ready to acknowledge.
Which side are you on, no matter Lord? Which side are you on?
Schools, buses, restaurants, churches, and neighborhoods all were segregated.
In Mobile, as a pastor of the Michigan Avenue Methodist Church, I had gone through an encounter with the Ku Klux Klan, who were after me because I had signed the petition to integrate the buses there. And it was just a great comfort to those of us who had been involved in the civil rights movement that somebody from the Deep South had given us a book that gave some comfort to us in what we had done.
We built our house in 1960. The black community where I lived was called the Morning Star community. One Saturday night, soon after we built our house in town, some white teenagers came through our neighborhood and threw a brick at our picture window. It missed the window, fortunately.
We were aware of the harshness and brutality of segregation. Here in Birmingham, you had, for the first time, black people making union wages in the steel mills. And they began to build nice homes. Now, these were veterans of service in the military who came back, went to school, got good jobs, started building nice little homes, nothing fancy, just little 3-bedroom frame houses. And there were more than 60 of those houses dynamited. To Kill a Mockingbird sort of gave the background of that, but it also gave us hope that justice could prevail.
Tom, will you catch this, please? Thank you. Now then, this time, will you please catch it with your left hand?
I can't, sir.
Why can't you?
I can't use my left hand at all. I got it caught in a cotton gin when I was 12 years old. All my muscles were tore loose.
Atticus had used every tool available to free men to save Tom Robinson. But in the secret courts of men's hearts, Atticus had no case. Tom was a dead man the minute May Ella Ewell opened her mouth and screamed.
I got something to say. He took advantage of me.
One of the things that's very powerful and instructive about the book is that even though it's such an indictment of racism, it's not really an indictment of the racist, because there's this understanding there that was the normal then, and for somebody to rebel against that and stand up against that was so exceptional.
Tom, did you rape Mayella Ewell?
Did not, sir.
What that took, the kind of courage that took, and the kind of inner wisdom and compassion it took for her to understand what it was like to be in somebody else's skin. She interpreted the feelings of Tom in his dignity and stance in a way that you knew that she had stood in his shoes.
What is your verdict?
She'd sat in that courtroom inside his skin. That's pretty remarkable for that time. For little old Harper Lee to have the courage to do that. That's pretty damn brave.
Court's now in session, everybody rise.
The courageous thing, it seems to me, that Miss Lee did was ended on a tragic note. You would think in a novel like this, that sort of achieved this kind of status, that it would be a very melodramatic tale of good and evil. And instead, it's a tale of good and evil that ends on a note of gray, which is where most of us live.
Young men that grew up on the wrong side of the issue that dominates this book. They start reading it, and the next thing you know, it's not just held their interest, it's changed their views. That's pretty damn... that's almost impossible, but it happens.
Most white people in the South were not, throwing bombs and causing havoc, but they had been raised in the system, and I think the book really helped them to come to understand what was wrong with the system, in a way that any numbers of treatises could never do, because it was popular art, because it was told from a child's point of view.